All right, welcome everyone to another episode of the podcast. I am super excited here because today we have the beautiful Crystal Van Commenee. Hope I said your last name right. I'm trying. But yeah, super excited to have you on here. Just to introduce to everyone on the podcast, she has worked for brands like Benefit Cosmetics, worked for Miami Swim Week, and been published in L'Officiel magazine. And she is 5'9", but I love her story. I listened to her story. We talked like a few months ago that we met, and I think it's a great example that even though you're tall, that does not automatically mean that the journey is going to be super easy and things are just going to be handed to you. There's obviously, for the majority of people, obstacles always, and I think her story has amazing tips and things and insights that many of us can learn from. So without further ado, I want to begin asking you, like, the first obvious question is that how did you start modeling?
Well, hi, Andrea. It's been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast. I've been a fan of yours for a while, so very happy to be invited to this podcast. I started modeling. I went to, it was a church concert, actually, that my parents brought me to. And this guy came up to me, and he basically told me, "Hi, you look so beautiful." And at first I was like, oh, this is creepy. This is weird. What's going on? He's like, "You look so beautiful. Have you ever thought about modeling?" I was like, oh, I guess so. I kind of started off doing photo shoots with my friend just a little bit before then. And so I was kind of aware of modeling, and I was kind of doing that with my friend, but I wasn't aware that I could actually pursue it as a job. I didn't know how to even get started with that. And so I was like, kind of, I don't really know. And he's like, "Do you have are your parents here?" And so I introduced him to my mom. And that's kind of how it got started, got scouted like that. And my parents were super supportive with the beginning of modeling. And that's how I started having my mother agent, because he was a mother agent. And he got me placed in different agencies around the nation. And yeah, that's how I got started.
Amazing. So I know, like, from your story, these agencies were top modeling agencies. And can you tell us just a little bit of, like, what you said, how old?
I was 14 when I got scouted.
Okay. So can you just share a little bit of, like, how, because I think this is a great, like, point to start from too, because a lot of girls who are under 18 have questions about how to even start when you're underage. Mm-hmm. So maybe you can share with us, what did you do between 14 and 18? Yeah,
so when I was 14, I got scouted. And then there was a year period of my mother agent basically telling me what to do, how to prepare. It was kind of a preparation period. So he told me to grow out my eyebrows, don't pluck them, don't drink a lot of water, work out, don't dye my hair, because I was dyeing my hair. So all of that stuff he was giving me advice on. And that was a year period. So I didn't really start actually doing any photo shoots until I was 15 or 16. And that's when he got me signed to all the agencies, top model agencies in LA, Miami, New York. And then I was doing development trips. So I would take trips to New York and Miami, go to casting, stay in model apartments. And so I guess how to get started when you're young, that it kind of came to me. It kind of came to me in the form of a mother agent approaching me and me getting scouted. Mm-hmm. But then the story goes a little later where I actually split ways with my mother agent when I was 17. I think I was 18 years old. And that's when all of my agencies dropped me as well. And then it was like, oh, wow, I guess I took everything for granted a little bit. I really appreciated all of them, but I'm like, what do I even do now? How do I even continue my journey as a model? And that's when I just had to really learn how to kind of be a freelance model.
Okay.
And that's how I started doing freelance modeling. And I think that was a really important step in my journey because I learned a lot about, negotiating, looking over contracts, making contracts for myself, speaking to clients. But then I really missed having an agency, because as much as you can do freelance modeling, it is helpful to have agents who can get you the bigger clients.
Yeah.
So that's when I decided, I was like, okay, I need to figure out how to do all of this from scratch. So I did a bunch of research online and found out to go to models.com, get all the information you can with agencies. I honestly just showed up to the agencies. I submitted online. I did everything I could to get my face shown again. Mm-hmm. And that's when because I was signed to top model agencies, I wanted to experience what it would be like to try a boutique agency.
Okay.
And that's kind of how I started. So I went from top model agency, freelance, boutique, and yeah. Do you have any? I'll keep going with the story.
Yeah.
A lot of, you can learn how to catch my breath.
It's a lot to unpack. Yeah. So before we keep going and like the story, I just wanted to touch on something that, again, it's another like really common question, which is who pays? Because you said you were doing a lot of trips for development. So you were you were living in LA, right?
Yes.
Okay. So you were traveling to New York and you were traveling to Miami and you're staying in models apartments. For anyone that doesn't know, model apartments are actually very expensive to stay in. Like they can be like $1,000 to $1,500 a month, and you're sharing this place with a lot of other models. So it's not just like regular rent for like 2 people or something like that. It's like that amount for a lot of people. Yeah. But yeah, so like you were taking all the trips. So like who was paying for that?
So the agency was putting it up front. Actually in Miami, they told me to just do a hotel room, and my mom was gracious enough to take care of the Airbnb for those Miami trips. But in New York, it was my agency who was upfronting those and then taking it out of future checks.
Okay. Yeah. So just for people to understand how this works, like you're at the end of the day, technically you were still paying for all of this. It's just that they were like acting like a bank and like loaning you the money for you to be able to stay here, with the hopes that once you start booking work, they're going to take their money back.
Absolutely. And that's definitely something that I try to tell models to be very aware of. And you are overpaying a lot, but it is something that it has benefits too, because it has the benefits because you're with other models, and I think especially if you're young and alone, it's good to have a little bit of company. Yeah. And it's also something, if you don't have the money right away, it's a form of like credit almost. Like you're putting it on a credit card, but you're not being charged interest for it.
Yeah, yeah. And also, like, I think one of the reasons why model apartments can work for underage people or models that are not really, they're just starting out, they don't have like an income, is the whole actually getting a real apartment. Because for a real apartment, you need to show bank statements and income and prove that you can afford that apartment. And if you're just a 16, 15, 17-year-old with no job, no experience, no money in the bank, you cannot even get an apartment by yourself. So if you get it through an agency, they don't do any of that. They're just paying. And yeah, it's overpriced, but what else are you going to do?
I mean, if you could find a sublease, I think that's like a better way to go. Also, it can be a little tricky. Like when I was in the model apartment, it was during Fashion Week. Okay. And that was a very interesting time for me because I was pretty young, and it was all these models who were dieting and having very like unhealthy ways of trying to get a certain size. So even though I had a strong sense of self, it definitely triggered certain mindsets that I had. And so I do think that that's like, if you have any other opportunity to not be in a model apartment,
considering
Yeah, you don't know what kind of energy you're around, and also just to be aware of that and to come into that with a strong mindset, being like, I know my worth, and even if these girls are struggling, maybe I could even be a positive influence to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. Love that. Okay, so now we have the story about how you got started and everything, and we left off with you being a freelance model and then trying out a boutique agency. So what happened after that?
Yeah. My family was in LA. My boyfriend we were living together in LA, and I just felt pretty comfortable in this comfortable place, even though I've always dreamt of being in New York, and that was always my dream.
Okay.
And my boyfriend and I's lease was coming up, and he came up to me and he's like, Crystal, you've always talked about moving to New York City. Instead of signing this lease, why don't, I know this is something you've always wanted to do. Do you want to move, or should we stay here in LA? He kind of gave that to me, which I'm eternally grateful for. Mm-hmm. And that's when I was like, okay, I think, you're right. I'm comfortable right now, but this is my dream to go to New York. And so I also, because I wasn't super happy with my boutique agency, I think it can work for some people, but because I had the experience of a top model agency before, I was like, I know what it can be like to have bigger opportunities. And because of the idea of New York was starting fresh, I was like, you know what? I think this is the perfect opportunity to just cut all my agencies off and just start completely fresh in New York. So that's when I moved to New York. Before I even dropped my agency, my boyfriend and I took a trip to New York to make sure we were comfortable, we would be happy living in New York, and so that I can meet other agencies in New York to see if I had any chance, I guess. Mm-hmm. So I submitted online. I asked my friends if they had any contact, my model friends, if they had any contacts. And I just showed up in the office of different agencies. I know some models are like, never do that.
Yeah.
It's a bad idea.
So this was outside the open calls schedule.
Yeah, I would go to open calls, but I would also just
show up.
Literally look the address up and try to show up.
Okay.
And it definitely was like a lot of rejection and like turning me down just at the front desk. Like, oh, you don't have an appointment. I'm sorry, you can't go up to see the agents.
Okay.
But I think that also it builds your character to just be like, you know what, I'm going to get creative. I'm going to do whatever it takes. And some agencies did let me in and they saw me. And one of the agencies that did that was the one who ended up signing me. And they were a middle tier agency, but definitely up and coming. So I felt really good about that. I'm like, okay, great. They're in between a top agency and a boutique agency. Mm-hmm. So I felt very comfortable with that. And that's when I let go of my LA boutique agency and just started fresh in New York.
Okay. Actually, just want to go back. Before you got your boutique agencies in, it was one boutique agency or several boutique agencies in LA?
So it was just one boutique agency in LA.
Okay. So when you were trying, because you said like you went to models.com and you were like doing the open calls or showing up to the office or like submitting online, were you only, like in that moment, were you only trying boutique agencies because of your experience with the top agency, or were you trying top and boutique and just...
I was trying them all, but it was kind of, you get your handful, you get a few agencies who are interested, mm-hmm. and then you kind of make a decision from there. And how did your meeting go with the different agencies? Did this agent seem more excited about you? Did this agent have like a vision, a plan for you if you were to sign with them? And I just felt like the boutique agency was the right fit at the time. They seemed very excited about me. So I felt like that was the agency that I went with.
So did you get responses from top model agencies, but just the agent didn't give you like the vibe that you were like looking for? Or was it mostly boutique?
Honestly,
you can't remember?
I honestly don't remember.
Okay. I'm just trying to like figure out if it was hard for you, even at your height and experience, if it was hard for you to get your door in a top agency.
Definitely. I mean, it still is. I mean, I've done this type of, where I kind of submit myself to different agencies.
Mm-hmm.
I've, done that in Paris and in LA and New York. And most of the time it's like a 90%, 98%. That's a rejection.
Okay.
And yeah, it would be really interesting to go into, even being 5'9", I went into this agency in New York, and the minute he saw me, he was like, "How tall are you?" And I'm like, I'm 5'9". Like, oh, because when I was younger, I was like 5'7", and my mother agent was always like, "When are you growing? When are you growing? When are you growing?" And I was like, I don't know. Like, I think 5'7" is a pretty decent height. Like,
yeah.
I'm okay. So then when I was 5'9", I felt very proud of myself. I'm like, great, no agency's going to ever reject me now. And he immediately was like, "How tall are you?" 5'9". And
you're like, I make the mark.
Yeah. Well, we're only seeing models who are 5'11" and above.
No.
And I was like, oh, wow. Okay. So you really, it was just so mind blowing, but I know that's not true because I went to their website. They sign models who were shorter than that, but you just really, it's a lot of, there's a lot of rejection, and it's easy to get bogged down by it. Mm-hmm. But I learned to think, like, all these no's are getting me closer to the right yes. Mm-hmm. So, if that person is like, "Oh, we're not interested," then I'm like, okay, cool. So checking that agency off the list. Next, like, even can't really get too emotionally attached to the idea of a big agency, because even some big agencies, I know models who are signed with the biggest top agency and they don't work because it's just, there's too many models on it, or there's,
yeah, they don't have like the right connection with their agent.
And that's what I learned the most through all of my experience with the agencies. It's all about your relationship with your agent. And I think whatever agency you're with, try your hardest to connect with your agent, go out to lunch with them, ask them if they'll, if they're available to go out to lunch, try to have a personal relationship with them, because they really do push for you and believe in you. And if you have that type of relationship with them.
Yeah. Okay. So now you're moved to New York and you signed with this middle tier agency. What happened next?
So then a couple months into signing with them, then the pandemic hit. So it was very much like, oh, okay, just moved to New York, fresh here. It's been 2-3 months, and now it's dead and silent.
Oh my goodness, 2020.
Not work anymore. Yeah, 2020. And that was definitely something that was a very interesting experience in itself, being like, wow, I moved to my dream city, making it happen here, making this work. And then, it's taken still more time. And I think that was definitely a test on patience. And throughout my whole modeling career, it's been be patient, be patient. But I do think that is something that is actually really good for models to learn, is patience. Mm-hmm. Because you hear about some models who immediately make it or make it big. But there's also, through meeting other models, there's other models who have been modeling since they were 14 and now they're 30, and they're doing bigger things now that they're 30 years old. Yeah. So you don't really hear of those stories very often. Mm-hmm. And I think that modeling does build your character in so many different ways, and it pushes you to grow as a human and build your character. And that's definitely one of those characters that you have to build, is patience.
Yes. Yeah.
So, and then I signed with them, and I just felt like, even though it was a couple of years into being with that agency, and I just really felt in my heart, I was like, I'm comfortable again. I feel like this is a good agency. It's a good agency. I'm comfortable, but I feel like there's something more.
Okay.
I feel like I feel like there's more for me. And that was really interesting for me. It kind of reminded me of being in LA and being comfortable in LA. Be like, no, I'm happy here, but no, there's something more. And I was like, I don't know if this is going to be a huge mistake, but I think I'm going to leave my agency. Okay. Even though there's nothing wrong happening.
Yeah.
I was just like, I don't have a connection with my agent. I just feel like I can do something bigger. And that's when I also did that same thing of asking my friends, do you have any contacts? Do you know any photographers who know agents? I just need someone who has a personal, that was something that I learned is you can submit online, you can, get to those agencies in person. But the biggest thing is having someone who knows an agent personally, who can get you an appointment personally. And I learned to not be afraid to ask for help.
Okay.
And people also want help. So that's when I asked a friend, she knew a photographer, and that photographer knew an agent, my mother agency, Nomad. And he got me signed to Nomad because I knew what it was like to have a mother agency.
Okay.
And they get you appointments with the top agencies. It's easier when you have a mother agent.
Yeah.
And so I was very happy and ready and willing to be with a mother agency. And Nomad has been such a great mother agency. They got me in contact with Elite, the agency that I'm with now.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So that's how that whole thing kind of
happened. Okay. I see. They're not just a mother agency because they also do like client work, right?
Yeah, then they also have their management system, and then they also have their LA board as well.
Okay, yeah. So follow-up question for exactly how did Nomad get you Elite? Like, was it like, hey, we set up a meeting for you, had to go to the meeting? Like, how did that work?
Yeah, they sent me out on a handful of different agency meetings. Okay. I think it was like a week full of agency meetings. And when I saw that I was going to be meeting with Elite, I got super excited because ever since I started modeling when I was 15 years old, my manager set me up with an appointment for Elite, and I always just felt like it's my dream agency. And when I first met with them, I was really young. I was 15. And then I think I met with them again on an open call in New York. And then I tried to meet with them one other time. So this was like my fourth time meeting them. And I'm like, wow, I'm really excited. But I've met with them 4 times. Like, I don't know. Just like, I don't know, too much. I don't know. But when they met with me, they were like, wow, we love you so much. You're so great. And then my agent later, she was like, why didn't you ever come to see us earlier? And I was like, I did. This is my 4th time. My 4th try. But that's another advice I have for models is just like,
don't be afraid to keep trying because they're probably not going to remember you.
You really never know. It's all in divine timing, I believe.
Yeah.
It's all in the right timing.
Right place.
You really can't give up.
Amazing. So now that what year did you sign? Okay, exactly when did you sign with Nomad? Exactly when did you sign with Elite?
I signed with them both. I think it was last year.
Last year. Okay, so 2021. Okay. So how did you make it in New York without being signed to an agency for I would say a year maybe?
So I was signed with my middle tier agency immediately just before I moved. So I never was a freelance model in New York.
So the work that you were able to get with the middle tier agency was enough for you to be fine financially, pay rent and stuff like that once you moved to Nomad and Elite.
Yeah.
Okay. Nice. Okay. So now my other question that I was thinking about is, yeah. Okay, so now that you are signed with Nomad and you're signed with Elite, so in your 5'9", what type of work do you mostly do?
I really do a little bit of everything. When I was in LA, I noticed that I was doing mostly beauty work, so makeup, skincare, and I really loved doing that. That was like, I felt really confident and strong in it. Mm-hmm. But there was something inside of me that was like, am I being typecast? Is this the only thing that I can offer? But I still loved it, and that's one of the reasons why I moved to New York, was because I knew that there was a lot of beauty work to be done out here. But surprisingly, most of the stuff I've been doing now has been fashion, little like fitness, a little bit of everything, honestly. So been very happy with spreading my work out a little bit more.
Yeah. So you're not being, like you said, like typecast. You're not like just like a beauty model or just like a fitness model. You do a little bit of everything,
which is really fun because they're all very different.
Yeah. I think that's, I mean, at least for me, that's my dream and goal, to be considered like an all-around model, not just like beauty or not like just commercial. You know, I want to do a little bit of fashion or fitness or fit, you know. So from your point of view, because you know the models in other top modeling agencies or within Elite, like how do you see petite models making it with top modeling agencies? Do you see like things are changing? Is it becoming a little bit more flexible with the height? You know, even you got rejected for not being 5'11", being 5'9". Like, how do you think in the past few years things have changed?
Definitely things have changed, and it's so exciting to watch this. And even just the last couple of years, my agencies have never commented on my weight, and that was something that was a big issue for me. And so I think model agencies are becoming less focused on those type of features like your height or your weight, because there's so much diversity that's becoming very popular. And brands are really thirsty to have fresh faces, fresh looks, something that can show a young girl who they could also do this, and they're also very beautiful. And so I think top model agencies are becoming more and more interested in that.
Yeah. Something I want to ask you, like going back with your story, I think it's great that you said that you became not afraid to ask for help. So you were reaching out to friends that you know in the industry and be like, hey, can you help me like get a referral? You were looking for referrals, right? Mm-hmm. Exactly how did you do that? Because I think like it can be like, I don't know, for some people might think like that could even be awkward a little bit if you're not like super close to that person and just like ask them out of the blue, like, can you help me? And, you know, like, I don't know, like, how did you like, I guess, analyze who you were going to ask the question? Like, were you like really close with them? Or you just kind of knew them? How did you approach the conversation? How did you go around that?
Most of the people I asked were acquaintances and friends of mine. There's definitely a thought in the back of your mind that's like, how will they think of me if I ask this? Will they think that I'm using them? Mm-hmm. But I think that's something that we all deal with. It's kind of a little bit of ego that gets in the way. That's like, I can't ask for help. How will they think of me? I don't want them to think that I'm this way. I think if you really are someone who just comes with it with good intentions and comes with it like, you know, I really, if you feel uncomfortable sharing this information, please, I'm totally fine. I'm just trying to be creative with how I'm, you know, I'm ambitious and I have big dreams, and I just think that I love your modeling. I love your agency. And I was wondering if maybe possibly you could, share and give me advice. You would even say like, do you have any advice for me how I can get into your agency? Or there's different ways that you can word it. And I think most people are happy to help. Mm-hmm. And if they're not happy to help, that's one more no that's closer to a yes, you know?
Okay.
And that's when it shows who that person is, and you can be like, okay, I really didn't mean it like that. And now that I know, I can move on to the next person.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Love that. Love the advice. Thank you for sharing. I think that's a great advice. And okay, so now going back, because you touch a little bit about how your agency doesn't pressure you to be a certain size, which is like amazing. Mm-hmm. But, you know, you've been with, you know, before when you started top modeling agency, then like the boutique agency, then the middle tier agency, like throughout your journey since you started when you were 14.
I got scouted when I was 14, started when I was 15.
During that time, and also like you said, living in the model apartment, and you seeing the models getting ready for fashion week, like during that time, did you ever experience being pressured to be a certain size and being told you're too fat when you're obviously not, and like you have to work out more, whatever? Like, did you experience any of that? Or maybe like yourself, like maybe people were not telling you, but you thought like, oh, like this girl's so thin, maybe I need to be thinner, and just, you know, all that stuff.
When I first started modeling, I kind of made a promise to myself that I would not let modeling change who I thought that I was. So, because I was a kid who would eat a lot of food, eat a lot of junk food, be happy and comfortable with myself. But it kind of had like a tomboyish attitude about food. Mm-hmm. And then, so I went into modeling being like, oh, I'm going to be the model who eats hamburgers, and I can be that type of model to inspire these other girls that they can also, they can also eat a hamburger. Mm-hmm. But then I just started going to these model agencies, them telling me like, oh, your hips are too big. My mother agent at the time would be like zooming in on pictures of my hips and my thighs. And it was definitely something that I just wanted to make my agencies proud. All I wanted was to work. Mm-hmm. So that was something that I was like, oh, all I want to do is work. So if that means that I have to work out a lot, that's great. And then these agencies, they would give terrible advice, being, you know, saying that, oh, you can't do like weightlifting because that'll make you bulky. You can't run. You can't do stairs. So it was just like, what can I do? So it just became very unhealthy. Mm-hmm. And at one point, I just got so tired of it. And I was like, you know what? I do all that I can. I diet. I try not to get my legs bulky, but my hips are a certain way. They can't get any smaller than this, even though, you know, the measurements are telling me it's bigger. And so if I'm going to be this type of model, then, you know what, screw it. I'm just going to weight lift. I'm going to eat as much as I want, and just be like an Instagram model because this is not healthy for me. Mm-hmm. I need something that I could, and if that means I have to give up modeling, I'm willing to do that for my mental health. And so that's when I started weightlifting and not being afraid of eating whatever I wanted. And it actually ended up being super healthy for me. And eating whatever I wanted, it's like the 80-20 rule.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
Kind of how I
everything in moderation.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And because of that, I actually like leaned out a lot, because it was kind of the opposite of what my agents told me. They're like, you're going to bulk. Mm-hmm. And actually I just leaned up. So it ended up kind of working out in my favor. But I do think that that's something that agencies are also willing to, are now being like, we care about your mental health. We want you to not have to stress out, because my agencies now are telling me, oh, if you lose weight, you'll probably, you know, have bad skin, and you will have like, one of my agents told me that one of these girls had like an eating disorder, and she had these like really dark circles under her eyes. So even if you are a certain measurement, it'll show up. If you're not doing it healthy, it'll show up in other ways. Like your hair might be brittle. So I just think it's just better to be healthy overall for your mental health, for your skin, for your hair. for your body, for your health,
just be happy.
Just be happy. It's definitely not worth it.
Mm-hmm.
And thankfully, thank God that agencies are now catching up. Brands are now becoming more aware that it's, I think it's a new age now.
Mm-hmm. So when you did Miami Swim Weeks, which is just passed, it was like July, right? Or something like that. Zero pressure to be a certain size for that. Like,
no, definitely in Miami, they're much more, I think they're like the most open out of all the cities.
Oh, really?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
They're definitely like healthy, curvy, but you don't have to be curvy. Whatever your body type is, I think they accept it in Miami.
It. Oh, wow. It's good to know. Yeah, because like I'm still like, because Miami's kind of far. So I'm trying to figure out like how the market is, like how open they are to like, because I know it's a big swim market, like a lot of swimsuits and stuff like that. So I've been wondering like, are they like really strict about like your size because you're like a swim model? Do you have like a certain like beauty standard that they go for, or are they like more flexible and open?
I just signed to my agency in Miami, and that was my first trip out there. But just from what I found, I definitely think that's a really good market for anyone who might. It's a really good market for anyone who
anybody
feels like they maybe can't. It might be a little hard for them to break into New York or LA.
Oh, really?
Definitely try Miami.
Okay, amazing. Yeah, because I get DMs sometimes about models saying how hard it is in Miami. So I've been wondering about that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I've been wondering, is it really hard? Or, because sometimes people are not like actually trying that hard. They maybe just try one agency, they got rejected, and they're like, oh, it's so hard, But so I've been wondering, like, is it really that hard? Or like, what are the opportunities over there? So I've been like asking people that know Miami market. I'd be like, oh, like, what type of work do you do? Like, how is it? Like, oh, and they say like they have a lot of commercial work too, which is great for like, petite models. So
yeah, they seem to have a lot of commercial work. I did a fashion job there that was like a lookbook. What's it look? No, not lookbook. Kind of e-com, actually.
Okay, kind of like catalog-ish, but not
catalog. Like... Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Which I was expecting. Oh, Miami is just swimwear.
Yes.
It's just super sexy.
Uh-huh.
And that was like it was cool girl type of style.
So, like, do you think Miami does like a little bit of everything? Like, like you said commercial. We talk about like fashion, beauty. They do like a lot of beauty.
I'm not sure. I just was there for 2 weeks doing the swim week.
Okay.
And happened to get a job while I was there.
Like
but I'm going to be back. I'm planning to be back during the winter because they said that's the season that's the most, the most work.
Yeah.
The busiest is during winter, which is perfect because then I can escape the New York cold and enjoy a beach.
That's literally the dream. That's the dream. Like being signed to New York and being visiting New York, and then like when it gets cold here, you go to Miami.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the plan.
Yeah, that's cool. What did you have to do? Like a different process to be able to get signed to Elite in Miami?
So with Elite Miami, my mother agency just got that. It was like a direct signing. I didn't have to go in person.
Mm-hmm. But did you ask your mother agency, hey, I want to be signed in this market? Like, how did that even like happen? Or did your mother agent was like, hey, are you interested in Miami because Elite Miami wants you?
I'm not really sure. I think what happened was I said to my mother agency, I'm wanting to be signed in other places too, okay, not just New York. Mm-hmm. And that's when we got signed to Miami, and then got a few other agencies in other areas too. So
you are living the dream. You're signed to Elite top modeling agency, New York, Miami, traveling, doing fashion, beauty, amazing stuff.
Thank you.
Do you ever get caught up in the comparison game? And if you do, how do you help yourself get out of it? or what has helped you to not fall into it?
Mm-hmm. Comparison is definitely, I think it's a big thing for anyone, especially with social media, to be comparing yourself. But it is something that I think models struggle with, especially because this industry isn't something that you can really control that much. So no matter how hard you try, sometimes this girl seems to be working more than you. Mm-hmm. And that's just something that you have to kind of accept and just know that comparison is the thief of joy. Like, you really have to protect your heart and know that also, like, things aren't as they seem. Like, people will come up to me and be like, wow, you're working so much. I just saw this and this. And I'm like, oh, cool. Like, it sure looks like that. But that post that I did was actually from 2 years ago, from a job I did 2 years ago. And I just randomly posted it today. Mm-hmm. So you never know when someone is posting something old or things aren't as they seem. Mm-hmm. And someone might be like, oh, I just talked to a model earlier that was like, oh, I have another job with Target. And I was like, wow, oh my God, that sounds amazing. That would be such a dream. Like, good for you. And she's like, oh, I'm so bored. Like, I don't know. I just keep like doing the same things over and over again. Like, I want to do something creative. And so it's interesting because even though someone might be, you look at them and you're like, wow, you're living the dream. I would love to be in your place. Yeah. They're bored or they want to do something else and they just kind of got stuck in a certain path. Mm-hmm. Also, an advice that my mom actually gave to me was make a book, a little booklet of all the positive things that people have said to you on set or clients have said to you, because it's really easy to forget all the positive things that from jobs that you've done in the past or just photo shoots, people being like, wow, you're going to do great. I could see a big future for you. You're very successful. And we can easily forget that. So, or just look at the negative things, the rejections that we've gotten. So mm-hmm. I do think that it's important to write down the good things. And also just what's helped me a lot is speaking positive affirmations to myself. Mm-hmm. And that was something just before I signed with that was something that I did when I signed with Elite New York. Just before my meeting with them, I took the time to do affirmations. And I'm not saying that that's something that made or break the decision, but I did feel like going into that meeting, I felt very positive, felt like a big light of energy. And the agent who signed me was like, you just are glowing with energy. You're glowing with positivity. Mm-hmm. I'm like, I think it's the affirmations. I think the affirmations really helped. So yeah, definitely recommend that too. It's not something that I've always done, but definitely helps.
Yeah, no, 100%, because like one of the things that you might forget in this whole process of getting signed and meeting agents and stuff like that is that it's not just your look, your book, your size, your height, whatever. Mm-hmm. It's literally the confidence that you come into the room. Because if you come like shy and like insecure and like you don't know what you're doing, whatever, like what you're saying, it's going to show, and the agent might not think you're a right fit because you're too, like, you feel too insecure. And if you come in super confident, secure in who you are and like your worth and whatever, they get that energy and they're like, oh my God, yes, like Crystal, like we want her, you know, she's glowing. So it is true, because I've heard stories, and even myself, like I felt the huge difference in feedback when I come in confidence versus when I come in like, oh, I don't know, like, you know, insecure. And
that was such a big thing. And I still kind of struggle with that. I've always struggled with a little bit of anxiety and being very nervous and insecure. And that was when I first started modeling. I didn't even know if I could do modeling because I felt so insecure. And I'm like, it's good for these girls who have all this confidence naturally. And it can be easy to be like, well, maybe I'll wait. I'll work on my confidence. I'll wait to do modeling until I'm confident enough, because everyone says that that's so important. And I do think that's very important. But also it's good to force yourself out of your comfort zone and do not wait. That's something that it was a long period for me too, like waiting because I felt insecure about my body because my agent was like, you have to be a certain size to be in New York. So I felt very insecure about that. And I waited and waited. And I feel like that's just not the right, we can wait and wait as long as, but we'll never feel prepared. It's kind of like having a kid, I guess. Like, those like people say you're never ready to have a kid.
Yeah.
I think that's like modeling. Like,
you're never ready to start.
You're really never, I mean, maybe some people feel ready, but I'm always struggling with insecurity and feeling a little anxious. And, going into this interview, I'm like, I don't know if I can do it. I think I'm just going to pull out. I think I'm going to, I hate to do this. I have to tell Andrea that I can't do this. I'm so nervous. And, I'm such a perfectionist too. And, but you kind of have to be like, nope, you did it. You're going to white knuckle your way through it and just got to push through it. So, and that builds your confidence, I think, over time.
Yeah. And oh my God, I had no idea you were struggling with the interview. But I'm just going to say, like, you have talked with so much like grace and confidence, and like your voice is so beautiful. So you did like amazing.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It means a lot.
But I agree with everything. At least for my personal like journey, I have felt and still feel sometimes the exact same way. And that's how I've made it this far, is that even though I was feeling super insecure about my body or super insecure about like my height or whatever, I was like, okay, like I do feel insecure. I don't feel like I'm good enough, but I'm still going to put myself out there and still going to try and still going to reach out to the agency. I still did like the steps, and I wouldn't be here today and you wouldn't be where you are today either. If you didn't still take the steps, even though you felt insecure. So I think it's a great example for anybody listening to the episode today and they're like, I'm not confident enough, like, the same way you felt when you started. Like, models are supposed to be confident. Like, if you are a model, that means you're confident. That's not true. Models are very, very insecure. It's extremely common. It's more common for a model to be insecure than for a model to be confident.
It's actually pretty crazy. I noticed that models are some of the most insecure people.
Yes, yeah.
But I think, you just got to do it. You just do it and it'll all work out.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because it's also something that it's like, you never want to regret not, you never want to look back and be like, what would have happened if I did submit to that agency, or I don't know, made that video online or submitted online, or,
reach out to my friend.
Interview, did that podcast. You never want to look back and be like, well, I wish I did that. So
yeah,
just do it. It's all going to work out. No one's, I think for the most part, no one's looking at you being like super judgmental. Everyone wants the best for you. Yeah. And I think, all positive, good vibes.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, I love the story. Thank you so much for sharing your journey, your insights, your tips, and everything. I think I imagined this episode was going to be, and it is super helpful for anyone listening. So I appreciate your time, and thank you everyone for listening to another episode of the podcast. And I'll talk to you next time. Bye.
Bye.